Chapter 15. It was pouring with rain when they landed at Glasgow Airport, but nothing could dampen their high spirits. Well, almost nothing. As Mr. Sampson picked up his car at the airport car park, all they could talk about was their London adventure, as Dominic called it. Sitting into the back seat with the boys, even Miserella was laughing. "You'll have to lose weight, Miserella," Dominic shouted as she showed him over. Start that chapter again. Chapter 15. It was pouring with rain when they landed at Glasgow Airport, but nothing could dampen their high spirits. Well, almost nothing. As Mr. Sampson picked up his car at the airport car park, all they could talk about was their London adventure, as Dominic called it. Sitting into the back seat with the boys, even Miserella was laughing. "You'll have to lose weight, Miserella," Dominic shouted as she shoved him over with her backside. "This is like sharing the back seat of the car with an elephant." Call let out a yell. "That's what she reminds me of. I've been trying to figure it out for ages. I mean, the resemblance is amazing." For that, he was elbowed hard in the ribs. But her smile remained. Nothing could wipe that smile off her face after last night. She not only had the autographs of every member of her favourite boy band, but she'd actually had her photograph taken with them too. No, nothing could wipe that smile off her face. Well, almost nothing. "You know, Columba McCann, I think I could even get to like you. Eventually. Maybe in 300 or 400 years' time." At that, Coll pretended to faint into the back seat while Dominic started to choke as if he was about to be sick. "Suicide time!" he shouted, and started a series of jumps and kicks that made everybody yell and Ella start to slap and shake him. "Enough!" Mr. Sampson shouted. "I'm trying to drive here." But he was still smiling too. He flicked a glance in the mirror at Coll. "I'll take this lot home, Coll. Dump our luggage, then I'll take you home. All right with you?" "I'll get a taxi, Mr. Sampson. I've got the money." Mrs. Sampson looked shocked. "Over my dead body. Get a taxi indeed," she tutted. "As if I'd allow that, in this weather. Your mother would kill me." It occurred to him again that Mrs. Sampson was a fine woman. Thoughtful, caring, almost as good a woman as his own mother. She was loyal. Here with the Sampsons he could see a lot of loyalty. A different kind of loyalty to that of his family, but it was still there just the same. They turned into the tree-lined avenue with the windscreen wipers still struggling to clear a view of the road ahead. Mrs. Sampson promised them all soup and sandwiches as soon as they went in. It was bucketing down as they hauled the cases out of the boot and struggled with them to the front door. Mr. Sampson turned as he opened it. "Well, I don't know about anyone else, but all I can say is there really is no place like home." Mrs. Sampson stepped inside and screamed. It seemed an age, as if time stopped while they took in what had happened, as they each stepped into the house. The hall had been trashed. Graffiti was spray-painted over the walls. The furniture was scratched and daubed. The paintings were ripped. The antique unit was almost completely ruined with paint and deep gashes all over it. And it was empty. All the china, all the silver, all the crystal, gone. Mrs. Sampson, almost on the verge of hysteria, ran into the living room and screamed again. Carpets destroyed. Furniture ruined. Everything that could be carried away easily had been taken. "Have they done this to the whole house?" Ella sobbed. Dominic didn't wait for an answer. He was off upstairs to check his own room. "But I don't understand," Mrs. Sampson cried. "Why didn't the neighbours hear anything?" Because nothing they did made any noise, Col said. Spray paint slashing furniture doesn't make a lot of noise. Ella's miserable face had returned with a vengeance. You seem to know an awful lot about it. Col swallowed, feeling guilty, and something much worse, something he could hardly contemplate. He knew all this, yes, because Mungo had told him. One night when he had drunk too much and boasted of how easy it was to break into people's houses, how much fun it was to trash their homes, what a challenge it was to do so quietly that not a soul would hear. And Col had laughed, not understanding that real people were involved, people like the Sampsons, people who would be hurt by such destruction of their precious things. Ella suddenly screamed at him. How do you know so much? Mrs. Sampson was still crying as she pulled her closer. It's not Col's fault, Ella. All the life seemed to have gone out of Mrs. Sampson. She sank into a slashed chair and began to sob quietly. Col felt like crying too. He blurted out, I'll get my brother to find out who did this. Mungo knows things. He'll find out. Ella laughed through her tears. Who are you trying to kid? Your brother did this. He knew we'd be away. He knew the house would be empty. And you probably helped him. Was that why you decided to come to London? To get us out of the way? I hate you. I hate your whole family. Col ran at Mrs. Sampson. Honest, Mrs. Sampson, Mungo wouldn't do this. Not to you. Never. And I would never do a terrible thing like that. Never. But I will find out who did it. I promise. He was babbling, trying to understand what was happening. And then Dominic came hurtling down the stairs, screaming, My PlayStation, Dad! They took my PlayStation! The PlayStation Dominic had taken so much pride in, had worked so hard for, gone. Ella ran at Col, almost pushing him off his feet. Don't you dare try to look as if this is hurting you, she screamed at him. You don't care about us. Her mother pulled her back gently. She sniffed, stopped crying and stood straight. When it all comes down to it, it's only material things. Nobody's been hurt. We can replace material things. She aimed these final words at Dominic, who was being comforted by his father. Col knew then that no matter what they found out, they would never blame him. If, because of him, their house had been broken into and trashed, they would never regret it, because it was also because of him that they still had Dominic. But knowing this didn't make him feel any better. He ached with the pain of it, as if someone had punched a fist hard into his belly. In the end, he did get a taxi home. Not because Mr. Sampson didn't want to take him, but because the police had arrived with a forensic team and were asking questions about what was missing, about the professional way the house's alarm system had been disarmed, taking fingerprints with no great hope of finding any. A professional job, they'd called it. One of the policemen took one look at Col, and that look said everything. A McCann and a burgled house. They went together like ham and eggs. Any other time, Col would have glared at him, challenged that look. Today, he couldn't even meet his eye. He sat silently in a corner, trying to make himself invisible. Finally, he called a taxi, without telling the Sampsons until it arrived outside the door. They let him leave with only a mild protest. And as he was driven away, he turned in the back seat and watched the house disappear into the grey, pouring rain. I'll probably never go back there, he thought. I'll never be invited again. The Sampsons will never actually blame me, but they'll want to keep their distance. And how could he blame them for that? He realised something else, too. He could never ask Mr. Sampson to help Claus now.